Good evening and welcome on The Spot. My name is Patrick Kamara. Now, many traders in Kampala and other towns around the country are currently on strike over new tax enforcement and collection measures by the Uganda Revenue Authority. The traders' strike and their concerns are part of a bigger conversation on taxes and the impact they have on ordinary Ugandans. This comes in the wake of government's proposal of a raft of taxes on key products such as fuel and building materials in the next financial year, which has raised fears of an increase in the cost of living. Government says the proposed tax measures are necessary to cover a revenue shortfall, but many Ugandans, especially those in formal employment, feel they are already heavily taxed, and yet they do not see an improvement in public services. Tonight we look at the tax regime and its implications on economic development and the general well-being of Ugandans. Gentlemen, Honorable Hassan Kirumira, Member of Parliament, Katikamu South, thank you so much for joining us. A warm welcome to you.
Thank you. Pleasure is mine. Our viewers, my name is Kirumira Hassan, Member of Parliament, representing Katikamu South in Wero District, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much once again for coming here. Professor Augustus Nwagaba from Reeve Consult, International Economic Consultant. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you very much, Patrick, and good evening, viewers of NTV. We are very glad to be here. Thank you for
let me begin with you, because your job is key in Uganda, but also in the region. We're having these economic turbulences, really. I can see physical indiscipline in Uganda. I can see the government going for everyday trader, not even a business people, traders who, these days we have a new word in Kampala called Kuyiriba, who have their local ingenuity of doing business. And they feel they're being squeezed. Before we even look at the issue of traders, you as an economist, how do you assess Uganda's economic standing today?
Yeah, thank you very much, Patrick, and good evening, viewers. Of course, our economy is not in good shape, as everybody knows. We have just come from COVID-19. Before the economy rebounds properly, then we have problems of course, of our development partners, who threatened to cut off development assistance. So that translates now into what you call a very large fiscal deficit. What does this mean? It means that the revenue, the domestic revenue that we are able to collect cannot meet the aligned expenditures. So you have a very big gap between what you need to spend and what you are able to collect from the business community. And as everybody knows, there is nothing like public money. There's nothing like government money. All money is taxpayers' money. So what we currently have is to ensure that the government can raise revenue to meet expenditure. But in the process, of course, you find that there are problems again of raising these taxes from a very small business community, from a very small part of the population that is able to pay taxes. So you have, just like in our homes, very few people who are able to cultivate, to go to the gardens, but with very many mouths to feed. So you have very many people who need the food, with very few people who can produce the food, and therefore you have a very big gap between those two. So currently, the entire economy is in the region. I currently work as a consultant for the African Development Bank. So I'm privy to what is happening in quite a number of countries. And I've been in South Sudan, we have been working in Kenya, in Tanzania, in Ethiopia, in Nigeria, in Ghana. The problems we have here are basically the same. The only problem, Patrick, and the only difference is the way we are handling those problems. Otherwise, the entire problems.
So the problems are the same, because the issue of, a bad return on investment, the issue of indiscipline on how using public resources, the issue of corruption, the issue of lack of effective public service delivery. Are those the same issues?
No,
because when I go to Tanzania, we seem to see a different story in Tanzania.
Of course, I've been also recently in Dar es Salaam. I stopped a bit in some other countries, and I've been I'm working in South Sudan. The only difference here, and I can give you an example, for example, this IFRIS, which everybody is talking about, these electronic fiscal transactions. Actually, in many countries, it's not even IFRIS, it is EFT, electronic fiscal transactions, which uses EFDs, electronic fiscal devices. Is something which was introduced, for example, in Tanzania. First of all, in Kenya. Kenya, it was 2005. In Tanzania, 2010. In Rwanda here, 2021. In Ghana, 2020. These are things that are not new anywhere. But when it came to Uganda, of course, the uniqueness of the Ugandan business community and the population, first, Patrick, is that the Ugandan population has also learned to like or to espouse or to crave for informality. You know, in the Ugandan situation, people don't like formalism. You see how we drive on our roads. You just see how we drive on our roads. If you drive properly, you are the one whom people are going to think that you are insane. You just see how we are really driving on our roads. You see how our borders are riding motorcycles. And yet, in Rwanda, for example, borders, people pay borders charges on IFRIS. This is something which started about 4 years ago.
But even in Uganda, IFRIS started in 2019.
In 2019. So
it's not something entirely that is entirely
new.
But let me come to you, Honorable Hassan Kirumira, because your role is critical. You are the people who make the tax laws. In fact, if there's to be any change, it will have to come back to Parliament. You are a people's representative, and you make laws. What is your assessment of this electronic fiscal receipting solution for Uganda that the traders are saying no to it? And yet everybody is telling us it is an enabler of business. It's supposed to help them keep their books, file returns. But the people who are using it are saying no.
You know, let me first make a disclaimer. Parliament has different opinions. And when such bad laws come to Parliament, some of us definitely go against them. But of course, the question is always there and raised by the presiding officer. And you know the outcome. The ayes will always have it. And we know who forms the biggest percentage of members of Parliament in that house. But of course, issues of taxes in our country are not new. Taxes are here, and taxes will always be there, because taxes help our economy to grow. When we are growing up, actually even up to now, the Bagandas have a saying that wangala ngumu solo, because they know that taxes should be part and parcel.
It is around in perpetuity.
Running the economy. It can never go away. When we were growing up, I think they used to have graduated tax.
Yes.
They used to tie people who never paid.
The defaulters.
And then it transformed into different ways. First and foremost, Ugandans should know that we need taxes. But again, bad taxes are bound to bring our economy down. And that is a fact, because much as we want these taxes to propel our economic growth, if they are poorly handled, the economy can nosedive.
But you know, Honorable Kirumira, this IFRIS is not a new tax. It is not even a tax. IFRIS is a receipting, an electronic receipting solution.
You see, the problem with that, the first problem with that is lack of sensitization. I can confidently tell you from my people in Wobblen's Town Council, the town council that I represent, we are just told about this increase. And now, of course, the mindset of our people, they will tell you this is going to be taxation and continuous taxation. But the bigger picture, and the reason why people are protesting, Patrick, is taxation. We cannot shy away from that. We all know exorbitant taxes that are going against the business community. And that's a fact. Whether this is hiding behind the real issue or not, that's a debate for another day. What we must know that our government is continuously taxing the business community, and so many businesses are being kicked out of business because of taxation. I know of businesses that have closed because of taxation. If you look around, if you go around the business community, their markup on the goods they are selling cannot even be 20%. Now, out of the 20% they are getting in form of profit, you are going to tax them. They are supposed to pay transport. Of course, the fuel is already taxed and the prices are high. They have to pay accountants in their business. They have to pay lawyers. They have to pay workers and a whole lot of things. Now, you're going to find out that they are making no business. And that's why they continuously close down business. So what we have to do as a country, and I think this is what we are telling the ministry, I actually thought we are going to have at least a representative from the Ministry.
Yeah, we made an effort, but they turned down.
Because these are questions we continuously raise to them. That what do we need in this country? Do we really like Uganda to grow in terms of our economy or not? Because we coming from inflation. Remember just recently, we are struggling with inflation and all that. And we all know the impact of taxes when it comes to inflation. The business people are not going to accept the taxes.
Just hold your fire there. Let me come back to you, Professor Nwagaba, because you know, he seems to suggest that the taxation in Uganda, the taxes we're paying are prohibitive in terms of doing business. But at the end of the day, again, taxes are needed. You know, like he uses the Luganda word, Wangalongomusolo. They have to be there anyway. So in your own comparison, is it the tax regime that is so prohibitive in doing business, or is it what?
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. The problem in Uganda, the way I can summarize it, this problem we are having with the business community, is that one, people are asking what does the collected revenue do? What does it do?
So there are other underlying
issues. What does it do? And once that question is answered, then in quite a number of countries, you find it very easy to collect tax. Let me give you an example. There are countries where tax is 65% of your earning. Here income tax is 30%. Because here, most of the taxes for government here are direct taxes.
Yes.
And one of them, of course, is corporation tax, 30% of interest on business profit. 30% income tax on personal earnings. These are direct taxes. And then the second largest one, of course, is the payee. Payee and income tax here are the largest. And these are direct taxes. Now, there are countries which tax up to 65%, and nobody complains in that country. So what does that show you, Patrick? That the way you use that revenue matters, and this is what is important.
So wait a minute. So which means now there's underlying anger, frustration from the people, and maybe the others are just you want to say it's not the real issue. The real issue is what's the money doing?
What's the money doing?
And
for example,
why are you guys living large?
There is a country,
the criminals of this world.
There is a country where I traveled, and all roads in that country, all roads from the capital to any of the upcountry towns, the roads are light. There's a light on the road. There is absolutely light. You don't even driving at night. You do not need the headlights. You don't need the headlamps on the vehicle. So in such a country, do you think people are going to quarrel if you introduce a tax? So issue number one here is what is the use of the money, and how do you deploy that money in terms of service delivery.
So I come back to you,
That's very
because
important.
you are from the other side, arm of government. Your government, you sit in parliament, you make laws, you are the ones who also make the, give up the money, and then you also go to do oversight. When a trader is coming to Kampala, he's going through a poor road, he's driving through the potholes, his car is breaking up, and then he goes to public hospital, there's no medicine, he's not well treated, and then he goes to public schools and things are not any better. Why would that trader not come up in arms against government and say, we're tired of paying taxes, because they cannot see taxes which they are paying through the nose are translating into something good for them?
I think my professor from Makerere has beautifully put it, because it's about motivation. And as we speak now, there is a proposal of increasing the income tax to 58%. Now, meaning
by the way, I've had the PS and the deputy PS say that's not true.
We shall wait and see. But I think it's not the debate. But even if it is true, like Professor said, so what if there is service delivery in the country? Now, if you go to countries like he has mentioned, people are willing to pay even 65% of their incomes when there is service delivery. But if you go around, start in Kampala here, you know how much money has been collected and how much money has been spent to construct roads in Kampala. Just move around and you see the potholes in the city. And this is the capital city we're talking about. You spend like 3 hours in traffic in Kampala. Go in the outskirts of the country, go to Luwero, where I come from, the mecca of the NRM government. There's only one tarmac road that cuts through Luwero from Kampala going to Arua.
It was even not meant for Luwero then.
Possibly. Now, where will the people get the motivation to pay taxes when there is no service delivery? Go to the schools where we come from. I went to a primary school. If you go there now, it's still the same structures when I left primary school in 1994. Nothing has changed. Children are still going to school barefooted. Teachers are grappling with minimal salaries. Where is the motivation to pay taxes? Go to the hospitals in Luwero. There's no medication. People go to hospitals, to the medical facilities. There's no treatment. There's no medication. Where will they get the motivation to pay taxes? So I think it is a two-way traffic. This whole issue of taxation versus service delivery, it's a two-way traffic. It's a give and take. If you are expecting to milk the cow without feeding that particular cow, expect negativity. And we should be very careful, by the way. The business community is very smart. You are never going to kick them out of business. The moment they realize that government is not doing what they're supposed to do, they are going to go the dubious way. If it is smuggling, they'll start smuggling and do all the anti-business practices, because for them, they'll have to survive. That is their trade. So the government has to be steadfast and do what is right for the betterment of our country.
Honorable Kirumira and Professor Nwagaba, gentlemen, hold on to your points because you're going to take a break, and on the spot, we'll be right back.
Thank you.
Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Kamara. My guests tonight are Professor Augustus Nwagaba, is an economic consultant, and Honorable Hassan Kirumira, Member of Parliament representing Katika South. Now, Professor, if I may begin with you in this segment, what can URA do to broaden the tax base so that they do not come to me and to you and the VIF people and keep going deeper and deeper? Because I'm assuming when they try to use technology, it's one way of beating the informality, but also broadening the tax base so that the tax ratio to GDP can rise, and if it does, probably the pressure will be less on ordinary Ugandans, and maybe we can see more money, and the begging around the world can also reduce.
Yeah, thank you very much, Patrick and the viewers. Yeah, you are right, because our tax to GDP ratio is one of the lowest, not only in the region, but also even if you say sub-Saharan Africa, because sub-Saharan Africa on average about 30%.
No, 30?
Yeah. Many countries in Europe, some are 40, the others are 27. Most European Union countries about 24.
Yeah, that's a big gap between where we are.
For us, it's 11. Kenya is 15, 15.3. It is very low. What does that imply? That there are really very few people who are paying tax. And in terms of tax economics, if you have very few people paying tax, it means that the government must always overtax these people who are paying tax. And what will happen is that these people who are paying tax, two things will happen. Either they're going to now have tax avoidance, which can be legal. Tax avoidance can be legal. You start looking for all wherewithals of not paying tax, and this can be accepted. But then the worst one will be tax avoidance, which is completely illegal. This is unscrupulousness of the business community, for example, that can try now to completely evade tax.
Tax evasion, another tax evasion.
Yeah, tax evasion, and of course that is very, very dangerous for an economy. So what the government can do in the situation where we have very few things that the government can tax, that's what the tax base means. A tax base means government has leverage. Government has many things it can be able to raise money on. But currently, where is government getting money from? I've already told you. Yes. It is a payee, that's number one. It is income tax, number two, which is 30% for business, 30% for personal tax. But like for me, where I'm working right now in our company, I pay like 6 taxes on one income, because I earn income as a company and pay 30% on profit. But I'm again the same person who earns income, and where this income that is remains from tax also pays me. Otherwise, I don't have a salary to talk of, which means also that small income is again taxed 30%. Isn't that 60 now? So what these business people are saying is that there is, Patrick and our viewers, there is over taxation. And that's very clear because I've also seen it from our company. There's over taxation, and then we have to have VAT. The reason why people are complaining on VAT, and I've seen URA and also other people saying, no, you are not the one paying tax. Why are you complaining that you are the IFRS, for you are just a collector, you are just a messenger, getting this tax and then handing it over, you are a conduit. You know, the issue is not that you are a conduit only. Why? Because the way IFRS works, for example, is that the business community has to purchase these EFDs. EFDs are electronic fiscal devices, that machine which you use. And in Ugandan currency, it costs about 1.1 million shillings, and it is maintained. And the only person who can maintain it from the regulations, which were delegated by Parliament, this is what we call subsidiary laws. It was a subsidiary law which Parliament made, and URA made regulations on behalf of Parliament. And URA says this machine, Patrick and viewers, can only be supplied by us. It is 1.1 million. 2, it must be maintained by us. And then you have to buy an app to run it. And of course you must have data on it. And then you have electricity because it needs connectivity. So when you add all of these, it is not enough to say exactly that it's not a tax. And when I'm laughing at people who are saying it's not a tax, it is a tax somehow. Why? Because it is a costly system. It's a costly device, which now
but the business community are adding. That this is just a one-off kind of.
But of course, it has to be maintained. You buy data. So what URA needs to do, point number 1, is that it needs not only to do sensitization, and I will discuss this with some URA people already. So you have discussed it because it also affects us. I've discussed with some people already. Do you see how Coca-Cola does its business? Coca-Cola, by the way, in Uganda is the largest taxpayer. One of the very, very big taxpayers. And the way Coca-Cola does its business is that they supply those refrigerators to business people who want, to those outlets, who want to sell their drinks. But why? They wanted to make sure that the people can actually sell their drinks. And Patrick, if you had the outlet, there's no way you can put there now drinks from a competitor.
So, okay, Honorable Kirumira, how can, you know, at the end of the day, your job is to appropriate money and to make budget and allocate. So it will also depend where money is being invested. Is it going to areas of development? So that if the economy develops and the economy is working, then maybe you can find many areas where you can be able to tax. Now, how can they broaden the tax base? How much money is there in the budget that goes for development, investment into areas where people can maybe tap into and then enhance their incomes?
Broadening the tax base starts with us doing the right thing and taxing the right people. As we speak now, we know companies in Uganda that do not pay taxes because they belong to a particular group of people, and that is a fact.
But you as a member of parliament, you're not like us. You are in a privileged position not to stand by and watch and let it happen.
We definitely talk about them. You know, just recently they had brought a law taking away taxes from companies producing plastics. I mean, really. So these companies are here and they do not pay taxes. We know foreign investors that have been given tax holidays. They come here, do production, tax-free, sell their goods for a certain period of time. Now, when it's time for them to pay taxes, they close up their shop, their companies, and migrate to the neighboring country. So widening the tax base starts with government doing the right thing. But like you asked me, what can we do as government given our budget? If you look at our budget, the biggest percentage of our budget is consumption. State House, Ministry of Defense, it's consumption and expenditure. Where we are supposed to invest to get returns on investment, there is minimum amount of money that is appropriated. For example, in the tourism sector, we all know it's one of the developing sector around the East African region. You will be surprised that Rwanda, our neighboring country, earns more in tourism compared to Uganda. And if you look at the attractions in Uganda, are far bigger and better than Rwanda. Why? Because they have prioritized the tourism sector and investing heavily in the tourism sector. Agriculture is another sector that it's actually the backbone of our economy. We've been taught that from primary school, that agriculture is the backbone of our economy. And the more investment we put in agriculture, the assumption is that we are going to get returns to investment. And of course, the taxes will come in.
You recently put in about $1 trillion through parish development model, and most of that money is going into agriculture.
That is money for eating, my brother Patrick, if you do not know. PDM money. Come to Wero, get time, I'll take you to the different parishes, I'll show you the beneficiaries of that money and ask them, what have you done with the money? People have gotten married, people have bought...
But you as a leader in Katikamo South, you're supposed to show leadership that this money is not, it's not per diem.
We advised the government. We put up a debate on that issue of PDM, but they did not listen. What do you do? So like I told you in Parliament, it's a question of the aye or a nay. The ayes always have it. Now, what do you do? When they overpower you, they do what they think is right. That money of PDM, just like the Myoga, just like the Ntandikwa and all that, it's a complete waste of government resources. And priority is not properly assessed. If you look at the balance of that money and where it is going to go, there was no study at all. The government did not plan it all. They just rolled it out, well knowing that people are going to eat the money. So for me, government has to go back on the drawing board and plan for this country. We have the National Development Plan, the Planning Authority. What are they doing? These are basics that we have to focus on as a country if we are going to move forward as a nation. And the first thing we have to do is to be patriotic and love our country. If we do not do that and do the right thing, we are going to be going backwards.
Okay,
so increasing the taxable base, we have to tax the right people, we have to invest in right priorities.
Honorable Professor Nwagaba, is there a need, of course I suppose there is, for government to be frugal, to learn to live within their means, maybe even reduce the cost of public administration? You know, the other day they're talking about the merger of agencies and these MDAs. Do you really think there is the appetite and the political will to reduce on the expenses that are coming through public admin, or even cut the wastage that we seem to see? Because at the end of the day, if you do that, it could be politically suicidal.
Yeah, because when you look at what people are saying taxes are high. It is the same person who is paying the tax, and they are also telling you they are not seeing what the money the government is collecting is doing. So what government needs to do just right now, and I hope someone is really able to observe this, is that for me, the countries where I've been moving, I've never seen anybody complaining of very high taxes. The reason why people are complaining of this tax is not because they are saying they don't want to pay tax. I haven't come across anybody who is saying they don't want to pay tax. But the problem really is the utilization of this tax. If you look at the level of corruption that is within even within the tax administration, is within the government system itself, and the kind of use, the kind of fiscal metrics, the expenditure, there's something we call the scale of preference. The things you do first, followed by what next are you going to do, then the third priority which you are going to do. The prioritization of the revenue that is collected, it is amazing, and this is a very serious indictment on whoever is collecting the money, because when people give you the responsibility that you are going to collect money, the motivation now for you to be able to come, let me use the example of if we are parents, is it possible, Patrick, that you can pay school fees of your son or daughter without giving you the report? Can you pay fees of second term without seeing the report of first term? No parent can do that if you're a very meaningful parent. So people are saying, what is the viability of this money? So what the government needs to do is first of all to create that motivation. You know, we need Keynesian theory. You see, there is what we call Keynesian economics. But you see, you must create, the way we create demand, the government must create this motivation for people. How do you do it? Be very frugal in terms of the utilization of the money. Be very focused in terms of the way money is used. People will find it very hard not to pay tax. And I know also a country where there is no need for police, where there is no need for enforcement. I've worked with all these countries where there is no need for investment, Patrick, of tax. Everybody is a policeman. Why? Because everybody is seeing services that are coming from this.
Yeah, we see the money is going into a bloated government.
Exactly.
For example, where you see it, with all respect, Honorable Kirumira, we're almost reaching 600
members of
rivaling a country of 1.4 billion. India.
We all know why.
And
it's patronage.
So
the government that is in power is doing entrenchment.
I think the business community, the way I'm seeing the business community, what they want The business community is not telling the president or government that we don't want to pay tax, but they are saying, is it possible that I pay 30% income tax, 30% corporation tax, I pay 6% of course that they would have withheld,
but
then I pay 18%, but then I pay...
Because IFRIS, well, largely it's not a tax, but it appears also it was exposing some people who were trying to evade, who were maybe were not remitting, and now you cannot evade. So isn't there a possibility, and I'm saying this with a lot of respect to the traders, that there could be those who have formed themselves, they would want to cut corners, but technology is not allowing them to cut corners, and that could be an issue, Honorable Kiromera.
Yeah, actually, what we must understand is that there are some very good business people, and there are dubious businessmen, and that's a fact. But now what is happening is that these taxation policies are catching up with the good business people. You know, of course, you would understand where the dubious businessmen are coming from, especially when it comes to fighting this. It's a very good strategy in terms of helping government to collect taxes. But its implementation is questionable, and that's why my focus was more on sensitizing the people. People do not know what it is. The government should have invested a little bit of time and money in terms of sensitizing its people on why we need this. In countries where we've traveled and gone to, it's one of the easiest way, because that electronic system will help you to calculate. It's easy to calculate taxes, you know, of course, with your invoicing and all that. But tax avoidance cannot happen with that system in place. And that's why some people who are fighting it could be fighting it for a wrong reason. But again, for us as leaders, it is our responsibility to fight for the business community, especially those very good businessmen that are being disadvantaged. As we speak now, in Kampala, shops are closed. We all know those people employ a whole lot of people.
They do.
Government is losing money on a daily basis in form of taxes. Kampala is more like a ghost town as we speak now. Why? Because the business community is at war with government. I don't think we want such scenarios in our country. Government should come in peace and talk to the business community. And actually, I find it problematic to hear that the business community is going to talk to General Museveni about the issue of taxes. For me, it shouldn't work like that. It is the Minister of Finance that is supposed to address these issues for the business community. Now, when they go to General Museveni, I look at it in terms of patronage, and they will, of course, is going to be a hero.
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Honorable Kiromera. Professor Nwagaba, you know, budget support has reduced. And I've seen the Minister of Finance trying to revise the budget also downward. And I'm not very sure whether the budget support is going to come soon. So at the end of the day, the traders and everybody should tighten the belt, because the taxes are coming and they are only going to increase.
Yeah, because we have a budget of, everybody knows we have a budget of 56 trillion shillings. But Uganda Revenue Authority will not collect even half of that. If it does very well, it will collect about 25 trillion. So where does the other money come from? Because you can balance a budget from two options only. One is domestic revenue, two is borrowing. As we speak right now, our debt to GDP ratio is almost reaching the threshold that can be afforded, and also is provided by international financial systems. So we must get money from taxes. It is always prudent that you get domestic revenue, which is a higher percentage of your budget. It is not good for any government anywhere to work with a very higher percentage apart from, of course, countries like the US, where the debt is even more than the GDP. But these are countries which manage their affairs differently. So for us, there is a need to ensure that you bite what you can swallow, And 56 trillion shillings with less than 25 trillion which we are going to collect, it means you need to borrow 25 trillion. Now, you must expand the people who are going to pay you this domestic revenue.
But also borrowing from more or less commercial entities, financial institutions, is not sustainable. Did I hear on the order paper, was it today, there was even something to do with borrowing?
Yeah.
So
Parliament was sitting to discuss borrowing.
Our government is desperate. You see, with budget support being cut, we all know these human rights issues.
So you sat in your huge chamber, the 600 of you, to talk about how much we had to borrow?
There was a loan proposal from the Ministry of Finance to borrow, is it 117 million US dollars from Standard Chartered Bank.
Commercial bank.
It's a commercial loan and purely unconcessional loan. It's poor terms and conditions. But the government is desperate and they are going to go for it. Why? Because they are desperate. There is no money. Budget support, human rights abuse, and all that. So that's where we are as a country. And the bigger picture is that it increases the debt burden of our country. Already it is soaring. If you look at our debt burden, yes, it's soaring day after day. Now, continuous borrowing is definitely putting our country in a very
why do you think, Professor Nwagaba, the people managing the affairs of our economy think our debt level is very sustainable? They make a comparison of what is happening in the region and tell us, you know what, we are still in very, our projection, and you know, we are still very low. We shouldn't be worried.
For debt sustainability levels, we use 3 indicators. First, you have to ask, why are you borrowing? Even you at home. Are you borrowing for a wedding, or you are borrowing for finishing your apartment? And I think most of the borrowing for years, of course, has been Karuma Dam, 600 megawatts, Simba, 187 megawatts. So we now have a total of 1,047 from 250. So this money has been borrowed. Most of it, I know, of course, there is money that has been borrowed for certain other funny things. But I think most of the borrowing has been for infrastructure. And you know, we had a very big infrastructure deficit. So that one.
But again, when you talk about Karuma Dam of 600 megawatts, I don't know whether it was coming to almost $2 billion, but
about 1.7, yeah.
Almost $2 billion to build 600. But I'm told the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, which is going to produce 6,000 megawatts.
It's 6 gigahertz, yeah.
Yeah, 6,000 megawatts. It was cost them about $4 billion.
Yeah, and of course.
So where is the value and the return on investment? That
is the worry, because if you look about 6 gigahertz with 4,000 billion. Divided by exactly 400 billion divided by 6,000, again it's 1.7. Even if you call it 2, divided by 600, of course it means, in English language, it means that the unit cost of each kilowatt hour has been much more expensive, and that's why our electricity therefore is very expensive. So also now you need to find out, how do our people negotiate these things? And that will translate into now us who use that electricity paying very expensively. And I think our unit cost, everybody knows, is 17 cents, as for example 6 cents in Ethiopia. And do you know what that will mean? Factories are going to be more attracted. Dangote will find it more easier to put that cement factory in Addis Ababa rather than bringing here in Tororo. So this means that the government must find a way in which it can make the cost of doing business much lower. Because our cost of doing business here is high, acquiring the land is high and almost impossible, utilities is high, the taxes are high, interest rate from commercial banks over 20%. It is the highest. Some countries it is 4. In Europe, average European Union 2, China less than 1. how are you going to compete with these countries? So you find our level of competitiveness is low, and therefore how are you going to attract investors? People will find other countries which are more competitive than us. So government also needs to work on this cost of doing business. And if I pay high interest rate, high tariff, electricity, high tax, and then you have introduced IFRIS, which you know very well, Ugandans like informalism. They don't want these things also which are very high, very streamlined. Also, I want the Ugandans also to listen, because we know that many businesses do not like. I'm currently working in South Sudan. Let me give you just one example. In South Sudan, tax revenue from South Sudan has been from petroleum. They have a Minister of Petroleum, and also they have a Minister of Energy. So the petroleum has been contributing, Patrick, 95% of total revenue. Oh. And now, from our work with African Development Bank, we have now increased this revenue from now, in their currency is called SSP, South Sudan pounds. From SSP, 45 billion to now 435 billion. How did we do it? EFT, electronic fiscal transaction, electronic fiscal devices, and this has made, what has it done? It has brought in very many people. Have you seen our fruits now going to South Sudan? The answer is no, because now the other Baragaza area is producing a lot of fruits, and now those have been captured. More people are now increasingly seeing the importance of generating domestic revenue, because we have also told them it is not good to depend on this monolithic, this thing of depending on one commodity. They realized, by the way, that themselves, that actually depending on oil, because there was COVID. And as I speak right now, South Sudan has not paid salaries of August last year. Of August, including the December, Christmas. Taxes have not been paid, salaries have not been paid. So this government must really be able to expand the tax base, bring more people in the taxation bracket, also learn how to ensure that the money utilized is efficiently used, create that motivation for people to pay tax, and you'll be surprised. You'll just be surprised how people can increase their capacity to pay tax. Okay,
I don't know whether they can actually, I'm not very optimistic. Why? Because even 3 months after you have passed the budget, chances are government will come with a supplementary budget. What happens, Honorable Kirumira?
Because,
when it is totally, there is no emergency, there is no catastrophe, there is no disaster, and the supplementary budget comes, and it has become a norm.
The cash bonanza, people want to eat money. And that's a fact. Even a few months towards the end of a financial year, you'll see them coming in, because they want to create a cash bonanza. It goes back to being patriotic and loving our country. And ask me, where is that money going? Expenditure, consumption. State House, they are going to tell you how the State House needs money, security, and all that. I mean, really, if it is investment, if they are telling us that, you guys know what, we need to invest more money in tourism, I'll say yes. We need to invest more money in agriculture, and this is a supplementary budget. No one is going to say no. But if you look at what they want us to approve for, you will be crying. So our government has to go back on the drawing board. Look at where, okay, he's been talking about South Sudan and where they are getting their revenue mostly. We have the oil sector in Uganda, we have gold, cobalt. No one is even talking about that. They keep telling us that 2025 we are going to start production of oil. Is it 2025, if I'm not mistaken? Yeah. Now, what happened to the gold Uganda produces? And we know we are producing gold in Uganda. No one talks about that. But they want to go and milk the common person. Okay. The young man that has started his small business in a small town, he must pay taxes when government knows where to collect taxes.
Honorable Kirumira and Professor Nwagaba, gentlemen, hold on to your points. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll open the lines so that you too, wherever you are, you can have your say. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Kamara. My guests tonight are Honorable Hassan Kurumira, Member of Parliament representing Katika South in Luwero, and Professor Augustus Nwagaba. And we're discussing the state of Uganda's economy and also the pain that the traders are feeling in the impasse between the traders and Uganda Revenue Authority. So, and this is the moment when you can have your say. You're going to see the numbers on the screen. You call us and tell us what you think. If you're going through hardship, we can understand, but remember to discuss with civility so that we can hear you more instead of ranting. All of us, we could rant, and perhaps we have a reason to rant, but it's better to discuss ideas that maybe could help in building our country better. So ultimately, how do we get out of this kind of impasse, Professor, as we wait for the calls?
The solution for this impasse is for government to listen to, of course, what the business community is saying. And what the business community is saying is that the tax burden is so high. So what the government needs to do is to ensure that it lightens this tax burden, because this is the only means through which.
But how do you reduce the burden when you have the appetite for more and you don't have any other avenues through which you can get money?
Exactly. You look at the fiscal side, the expenditure side, see what lines of expenditure do you have. Are these the priorities that you are supposed to be having? And if they are not, so what are you going to do? Cut the
I think we have a call online. Hello.
Yes, hello.
What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Frederick Wanambuko. I'm calling from Mutungo Hill.
Go right ahead and don't listen to your echo. Just continue talking.
Yes. Now, on the issue of the tax system and tax administration, there has been a very big problem of overtaxation. And the biggest problem we have is the Minister of Finance is doing a disservice to the president. These guys are very lazy. They have failed to come up with measures of expanding the tax base. Time they think of taxing, they just have to increase taxes on the same items, fuel, same taxpayer paying more on fuel. His pay is going up. There's so many other sectors which they have not taken care of, like, for example, the commercial farming. Number two, there is a lot of wastage. We hear money being swindled here and there. We're always driving potholes. Cars are breaking down every day. So please really need for government to provide accountability for the money we pay as taxpayers in this Uganda. Thank you very much.
Our caller there from Mutungo Hill for your submission tonight. Well, in fact, those are the issues you raised at the beginning. People do not see the value of the taxes they're paying. And maybe the government need to be a little more frugal, but also a little more transparent and a little more effective in the utilization of the public resources.
Even comparison with other regions, look at our value-added tax, the VAT, it's 18%. In comparison with the other countries around us, just within the East African region, they are on 16%.
16.
Now we are in the East African integration. We expect our business community to be competitive with our neighboring countries. How will that happen? The professor rightly said, business and investors will find it more productive and profitable to go to our neighboring countries and invest their money there.
Professor, the business people are also complaining that sometimes a person comes from another part of the world as an investor, they are given an incentive maybe to build a factory, and yes they do, somewhere in Mbale, somewhere in eastern Uganda or north or south, and then the same person will do retail, the same person is going to do
hawking. The same person does hawking.
Even
does hawking.
They are making bricks.
And yet the business the business practices globally is that we have manufacturers, we have wholesalers, we have distributors, and then we have retailers. This is really the value chain. Even when you look at VAT, you know, IFRIS is specifically working on VAT. I think the business community also needed to understand this. This IFRIS, electronic fiscal receipting and invoicing solution is not working on any other tax. It is working on VAT. And VAT, value added tax, means that if you're a manufacturer, you sell to a wholesaler, the wholesaler sells to the distributor, then the distributor now is the one who's, you know, those depots. Is the one who is selling now to retailers. Each person, every step, add something until now this Coca-Cola or Pepsi Cola or mineral water, it reaches me, and I'm the person who is now consuming it. The fiscal, the IFRIS really helps you to now calculate, and this people need, the business community will understand this as time goes on. It helps also this business community to calculate each additional value that has been added on every stage. And in fact, Patrick, people need to know that actually in Uganda, people registered on VAT are 25,000. The registry for VAT registration. But the people who are using, people who have been using IFRIS, people as we speak now, people have been using IFRIS system is 42,000. Yes. Yeah, because meaning 42 minus 25, you get about 17 people who also have found this effort is very good in terms of these calculations now. Making sure you have good records.
Yeah, this is what is intriguing, because
this is very
whereas
intriguing.
there are some people who are fighting, there are those who voluntarily
the voluntary users are 17,000. 17,000. Because it's an accounting procedure. Now, you don't, like for us at our office, before I went for MBA and I understood now finance and so on, I had to go and study MBA. To be able to understand financial accounts, statement of comprehensive income, against balance sheet, all of this is now we do ourselves. And this system, what it does, it now helps you on accounting records, on keeping your good records. There is no need, actually, the business community will understand later as time goes on. I'm sure now they are still, of course, hot with these issues. There are trade taxes, people are doing, but after they have understood it properly, you realize that you don't need even these other people whom they have been employing. But
Professor, you're the same person as saying it's an embedded form of tax, even though it's not really tax.
There's discussion. I've been engaged with URA. I've discussed with the URA people themselves, and I don't want to mention their names, because I knew, when I saw it, I also knew that it's going to bring trouble to government. I knew it strictly as a consultant, and of course having the preview of information from other countries. I work with quite a number of other countries. I knew here it would bring problems. So what other countries have done, have tried to do, is to ensure that 1.1 million for the EFDs, this device, is quite high. In Tanzania, by the way, in Tanzania it's about 2 million. Divided with 10 times, about 2.3. It is quite more expensive. It's actually quite more expensive. But the issue, I think actually the issue here still remains the utilization. Because I was in Dar es Salaam the other day, the flight I passed through another country, but I did it and I asked, because I knew these issues were here. I asked to see whether anybody is complaining about. There's nobody is complaining about this freeze. So the complaints are here.
These are frustrations coming from
the business community, because of lack of good education. There is also an excitement. I think they have not understood clearly the system. Once they realize also the positive elements of this system, and the government comes up with less wastage, utilization of this money, ensuring that when I pay tax, my car is not going to lose the shock absorbers because of the very poor roads and the potholes, and you go to
we have a call online. Let me get this call online. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, good evening. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Good evening. My name is Augustus Grenkia.
Okay.
I'm calling from Masindi.
Our caller from Masindi, we are hearing you loud and clear, and don't listen to your own echo, just continue talking to us.
Yes, please. The biggest problem is we have people who are preaching patriotism. But those who preach patriotism themselves are not patriotic. Because in most cases you find the money that is being spent by the executive in State House is beyond expectation of the citizen. But you find the president is preaching patriotism when he is not himself practicing it. And then another issue is, as those guests have put it right, you find you are using power, you are using water. Those businesses have very many utilities. Whatever you are using, there is tax embedded in it. So it makes it very, very costly to operate business in Uganda. And it becomes a problem for these businessmen to retain some profit. So that is why these businessmen are really opting for demonstration.
Thank you so much, our caller from Masindi there. So pretty much you have read the minds of some of the viewers tonight. Their concerns, the concerns you're raising at the very beginning. So now, how do we get out of this as we conclude this?
Of course, like we've mentioned, we have to tax the right people. You see, we have to do the right thing, sensitize our people. This electronic system is sensitization, transparency. Our people come from a background of negativity and not knowing what is going to happen. So they are, in their mind, this is another way of hitting them. Of course, it's cameras of the taxman into their businesses. Having that electronic system is a camera on its own by revenue.
So I've also had a complaint, Professor, of the enforcement, the mode the URA is using to mobilize the resources. They are saying you cannot come to our places of work with the barrel of the gun, and that's an issue they have also raised.
I think that one the government has already addressed it. That one is not going to the president now. I think the Minister of Finance, my friend Mattia, has already, because it was a bit barbaric. Because the enforcement, the enforcement and most of the regulations were subsidiary laws. This is not what Parliament did. Parliament had put the law, but then delegated the Uganda Revenue Authority to work out the regulations. So I think in the regulations, what Parliament needs to do now, right now, is to call back some of these regulations and really, again, review them and see whether these are good regulations. And one of them, which I urge Parliament again to look at, is the enforcement. To send now armed forces to start looking in the receipts of whether my receipt is an electronic receipt and so on. This thing can be done in a civil way, and you get exactly what you want to get in a civil manner, rather than roughing up people and making it so many arrests of somebody who has not, and embarrassing people, and so this enforcement is not being well handled. And the businessmen have already communicated it with the Minister of Finance. The Minister has responded. I know that. The Minister has responded, and the enforcement has been addressed.
Okay.
I think what is remaining now to be addressed is the issue of the threshold. They are tabling the threshold as well, from 150 million registered VAT at the threshold to 1 billion.
Okay.
And I know this one will not be good, because then the government will lose a lot of money. They need a lot of negotiation there.
Okay, I think I have a call online. Hello? Yeah, sorry, could you repeat that?
onalaba kirumira nkwagala nnyo abeeruweru webale kuba nsigadde mbasaba Fabrice nate gavumenti ya Museveni ave ku
well, maybe you can translate that. My Uganda is still a work in progress. So
the gentleman is very clear.
Okay.
He's telling Ugandans that the problem is the government in power, and General Museveni is the one coming up with this taxation system because of the appetite for money. And when this government is out of power, Ugandans are going to celebrate, and the business community will enjoy doing business in Uganda.
Well, I don't know how that's going to happen. You guys are also, the opposition guys are also busy hitting each other. But I want to thank you, gentlemen. But maybe let me ask you to give us your concluding remark, and then I come to the Professor Augustus.
Ugandans watching us, they're asking themselves so many questions. Where to from here? One of the callers mentioned that we need to be very patriotic, cut on our appetite for money and expenditure. We know the root cause of that. If you look at the budget of State House, security, and all these expenditure, it is burdening the taxpayer. Our taxpayer is highly burdened already. Now we are burdening them more. Now that is going to transform them into taking the taxes to the consumers in form of increased prices for goods and services. When they increase prices for goods and services for them to pay taxes, it's going to fuel inflation in our economy, and that will make our economy to nosedive. So we need to be very patriotic and love our country, do things, come up with proper laws that are going to help our struggling economy to take off. And only when that happens, we shall see Uganda progressing and our economy growing.
Thank you, Honorable Kirumira. Or Professor Nwagaba, your parting shot.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think Ugandans need to know that, and our business community or ourselves, that digitization is the way to go. There is nothing we are going, there's nobody who's going to stop digitization, not only in taxation, in all other areas of life. We are working to ensure that we can also cope with electronic systems and digitization. Two, the business community is complaining of the tax burden which is hitting few people that are paying tax on behalf of the rest. So this 1 million people who are paying tax for 47 million people must stop. So government must widen. There is only 1 million people, Patrick, paying tax out of the 47 million people we have in Uganda. So how can 1 million people support 47 million people? This is not possible. So we must widen the tax base. And so the business community is right to ensure that their burden is lessened. And then finally, the Ugandans, I also want to address myself to the Ugandans. The Ugandans must learn that formal procedures are very good elements in doing business and also in doing other things. Informalism is not sustainable in doing modern business, in modern life. So we need also to learn that we must find a way in which we can do things formally, and then the government must also come up with less wastage of resources, using money prudently, and once that equation is solved, there's a good use of money, low wastage. The business community have learned that they need to move from informal to formal, and everybody has appreciated including voluntary use of IFRIS. You will find that tax will be a very enjoyable thing to have, and the government will be able to work with the business community without any problem.
Professor Augustus Nwagaba, economic consultant, thank you so much for your time, sir. Honorable Hassan Kirumira, Member of Parliament representing Katika South, thank you. Both of you gentlemen have added value to our platform. You've been phenomenal tonight in talking about matters of economics, and I'm sure some people have picked one, two, or many more things from your submissions. I'm rooting for Uganda. I'm optimistic about Uganda. I'm hopeful about Uganda because I'm Ugandan. We are a good country and good people. If we can understand our obligations and our responsibility, our country can be better. Good night and God bless Uganda.
Thank you.